Did you have a good morning?
Shopper two Johnson Esa. Johnson Esa. Canada, Choramba.
Me too. Okay, so I need 7 volunteers.
7?
7.
Tanglan Dungu Esa. Shasha Peshtama Canada. Shelane Rayo, Jacade Rayo, and Yene Rayo, Tasho, mid. Sure.
There's
Hey, hello.
one.
Me do ya shosa.
Ni.
Chick. Yes, chick.
7 people up here.
Can you my shasha? Oh, yeah, pay up, yeah. Sure, you some share, do then, Tanya. Yes, sure, yes, Lipish. Tayan Shisha.
2,
Tayan Shisha.
4, 5, 6. 6.
Because it's under Yin Damadusa.
6. We got one more.
Talis. Karishi, how come are they? Yes, sure.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Wait. 1, 2, 3.
That is.
4, 5,
That again.
6. All right,
That
you
is.
can go up here. You're going to be my assistant.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you're lost. Yeah, go up again.
So first, I only remember how to count to 3 in Tibetan. So you need to teach me. Ni, chi, sum, chi, tu, di. What? Oh, it's chick, ni, sum,
Shi, Nga, Du,
gu,
Je,
yeah. Okay.
Gu, Chitamba.
Okay, so your job is we need to get them ordered by height, from shortest to tallest. Go. Yeah,
So
here,
again.
so everybody can see them. So
Zupu Toma
short here.
Pache, Zupu Rama Sare. Toma Pajusa, Rama Susa.
Let's see.
Yata Katu de Daya.
Wow, you're really similar in height. Okay, I think. Yeah. Okay.
한번 연요 선배 주자거든.
Okay, good.
나 연습 판다거든. 진짜. Yes.
All right. So, one thing that you did yesterday afternoon when we brought our data into JASP is we looked at the mean of a variable, like the average jump score. Or, jump rate.
계산 아주 just 나라야 제수가 장투츠 랜데데 네 제수가 단다 장투탄 레베기 네 제고 카치 드비오레스 드비아티 아니 장투 때다게 찬용 그 장탄 시샤데데 아니 단다 제고 드비오레스.
And through an average, we're trying to say like something about all of our data.
단다 찬용 세스탄발라야 되게 가르쳐 거라서나 장투 참말라 차버기 네탄치 못지기오레스.
So if we wanted to get the average, which is also called the mean, same word in Tibetan?
Yeah, we have two different
Two
terms.
different words. All right, let's use mean.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. If we were going to get the mean, we would take Ani's height and add this height, and divide by 7.
다단다 민사대가 수피체 념장 인타와 념장 찬용장 타서 그래 념장대 제라야 되게데 쿠츠 사마게 주포게 랑세게 념장대 최고세나 다 리리리리리게 주포게 랑세테 돔 참아 동거와 주포 랑세 돔 쳇테 돔 아니 타마텔라야 돔 고고레스.
Okay, so that's a mean.
티 냠짱 레스.
Also, in JASP was something that was called a median.
아하. 다 되게 가사 되나라야 인치스 미디언이도가 미디언데 패션가 속에다 벌마가 장탕로와 기마지마가 장탕쇼로와 어디세게 측정이 요레스.
So the median value is the value of heights where half of your data are on one side of the median and half of your data are on the other side of the median.
다 단다게 벌미가 장탕 벌마 장탕 벌마 스고다 벌미가 장탕 세테 가르세나 아니 단다처럼라 장투치고로와 장투티 다 방름 드샤요로와 다 투안이 마와라 방름 드샤요로와 데니 쇼치니 다 쇼치니 스바이나 체크때 파조사샤 쇼츠조사니 스바이나 체크때츠조사치 기마기마텔라 이게 장탕텔라야 아니 벌미가 장탕스 그레스.
So who is the median height?
다 단다디나나 벌마가 장탕테 간그레스.
Median height is him.
The median.
다 벌마가 장탕 레스 바로 따닥고였어데.
Okay, you can step back. Okay. Now, the mode would be the most common value in your data set.
Mode.
Mode.
Can you explain a little bit?
So if, let's say that all of them have different heights, except two of them. We'll see. Who do you think has the same height? Actually, okay. So let's say they're exactly the same. Okay? A little bit taller, a little bit shorter, a little bit shorter, a little bit shorter, a little bit shorter. They become the mode because it's the most common value.
The mode said that I'm a patient at the mountain lash as you are, mountain says you are. That the Casugusena, that the dinner Kusuzupu and Sella Teledusha. Mode say mountain satica lena Suzuka Tuganalaya, any Casugre. Chipa inju mansuch gorwa, or Tilaku rest that under the Banakusu Puran Serwa, Puran Senalaya, Genambanik Puran Set Chipachichanwa. This Tambalaya, Tantun digging on a mountain cares and a chronic Puran Seteres, Chipachichan rest.
In the research you do, and the research that I do in my lab, we use means a lot, and we use medians a lot, that middle value.
다 단다 직접단 게 탁세지야다 가수가 탁세지야게 되나라야 아니 탑버다 단다 테스스구라 땅가게 이세지비가 값서 다 땅탕 망부가 나네 배수 망부단 그래 시카르레스 담발라야 뇽짱 테르와 찬용가 땅탕테제 녀테 칼라나 퍼마게 퍼니가 땅탕치고라 퍼마게 땅탕테 세텐 샤배수 망부단 그레스.
You're also going to see a graph today where we distinguish where just like 25% falls onto one side and then the 25% biggest falls onto another side.
장투 데이터단 레비기 트르지 체주가 통거래스와 장투 데이터단 레비기 트르가 나네 그다 장투 데이터가 나네 자체가 뉴스생아티 라야 추비기 적식 파조살아요 빠지 아니 되게나네 자체 뉴스생아 섭바데 아니 트르가 최소살아요 빠지 최소살아요 빠지간 통거래스.
So we only have 7 data points, but 25% would be right around here somewhere. And then 75% of the data probably cuts off right around here somewhere.
다 단단 가수근데 라야 kuzu midden 요바데다 가수게 다 가수그 단다게 장투데 라야 시샤바임바나 자체 뉴스생아티 펜체다 미니 참제 아니 자체가 든치 동가서 거라 최적산의 뉴스상가 비바나 자체 든치 동가 클레그와 그런 얘기 삼델라레스.
And the reason this is helpful is it says, well, if I'm interested in sort of like what the mean or median is, what's the average, I'm interested in this part in the middle, right, is probably the most informative. So I say, where are the cutoffs where I capture all of the data in the middle of my data set?
다 단단들라야 지코 단다 장투가 나네 다 지정 방득나서 거더라 장투 간서 지정 방득 피값스게 자체 뉴스상가 파적게 과단 자체 뉴스상가 서정네 거와 그게 진생가레 시스템 발랑 가수고 장투 이시지 비값스 가수고 돈어 죄사티 야나 가수고 세세티 가레세나 냠장 당 벌마기 장탄투 제거요레스 nyomtang ta perma ka tang te kangela thani gre se stambalaya parola yo sa chigorwa parola yo sa ka tang te thani go yo sa ne nga chu parola yo pi ja che ga nga chute la ya ne tuno chembo ga ta gi yores
Okay, thank you.
tuji che nas laso
So these are some data that were collected in my lab, and now you're going to see the exact same thing, but with some numbers rather than monks and nuns.
Ta da de ka sim banar wa ta da pat ta nga su ge de la ya chi ta zung ge min thone chi chi de ta ta da ge de la ya ane tang tha kha chi ko ba de ane nga nga phge la ya tak se chi bi kap se de be ge ane tak se ga nang ge kha shi chi yin sta de na ne ta pha ju ko ba de ane che chu ga tang ka kha chi thong res.
So a mean, we have 5 values, so we add the 5 values together, divide by 5, and we get the mean.
Ta da de banar wa de ga na ne nyom tang te ka re system bala nga su de la ya tang thong man do nga do wa nga te dom ti la nga go pa na tham thop tang ka re le ge yo pa te nyom tang te res.
The median is I just line up in a row, just like we had our volunteers, and we find the one in the middle.
Ta de ga na ne permi ka tang thong sa chi go ro permi ka tang thong te ka re se na ane tanda tangka kari opati pangram digur watch wani chuo parta pangram digur detang ane kima tak ko tela ya permi tang thang segres.
Now remember, the mode is the most common value. If we actually look at these, they're all different, so there's none that's more common than the other.
Ta tanda de na ne chujo tela ya mangtang la sto ka mode la de mangtang se de ka re se na tina na ya da tanda ke chora tang thu chi go pa na tang thu tina ne mang shui dis go wa Istanbul ya tanda de la ta pa ma na tang ka nga cha man do ar do wa man do Istanbul ya cha ma ko yong ya ge se cha te shi ba cha go ra Istanbul tanda de na la mangtang yo ma res.
And this is why we don't use mode very much in a lot of the research that I do. Do you use it? Yeah, not very often.
Ta tanda tin Istanbul ya ane ngarang ge those do ya gi ane te na la ane tanda ge mangtang se te yang se pe chu tang ma res ro chuni tang ma res tanda ge la ke chet so gen jeremy la ke chet so gen jeremy la ko ta ko yang yang pe chu tang ge tang thang chi cha ga ma res tanda mangtang se te.
But if our data looks something like this and we had 0.3 twice, then that would be the mode.
Ta keti ta tanda le ko sosum se te thwa nyal le pa bana tanda dig na ne ta mangtang se te le ko sosum chak des. What if we have 0.4 another 0.4?
If you had 2?
Yeah.
Tricky. Yeah,
Sorry.
so you could have 2 modes.
Okay.
So you could have data in which, in fact, you could have data in which there's like a really common number that's small and a really common number that's large. So imagine that you were taking your Geshe exams and there was like a cluster of people who do really badly, it's bad, and there's another group that does really, really well. There might be sort of a mode in each of those groups.
Ta tanda de la ya ke chet pa na tanda de la ya ko le ko so ge le ke chet ka le ke te le ko so jis ge pa na ta de na la mangtang ni chak re se na ta mangtang ni chak re le ko so sum ni chak re le ko so jin ni chak wa ta de la ya mangtang ni chak re ta ta de picha cha pa na ya che chu ta ge lu ji tu ta pick up sus ta ge lu ji tu ta pick up sus ta ta na so ge ja che ge tam se de se ja gor wa ja che ge tam se de se ja pick up se ane ko ta chanyon che ba de so ro ta chanyon ko paro te la mang po yo pa che ane ik se ya chi yapo machong ba te ya chi jasha chikpa te na khasi chi che ane ko ikcha ha je yapo chong wa te ya ko jasha chikpa khasi chikda chikpa khasi yo pai bana ta da tinda da go ta che chu giri ji tho tang bai bana te gi tramdi tang je bi ge tang thu na la ya mang tang se te tha ni na ya yo ani chala yo res.
Jeremy pointed something out, that we have one variable that we created yesterday. We gave it a score of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5.
Ta ta da ge jeremy chi song song ke sang a suen ba na chi la ya chi ja cha chi te ro chi ste la ya chi ni sum ja cha mas de tang ka chi te ro chi ste na ne chi ni sum ji nga gi na ne dam ro chi yo res.
And I think That was how well you understood the video. 1 was I didn't understand it all, and 5, I understood it well and could explain it.
That road the system bala chorong ganyen ti yalo gutsu song sa tres chigin bana tising gutsu song sa tres ngai bana pe apong gutsu song sa tres.
The mode would be the most common answer, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5.
Ta danda dingna tang sa de ani tanda chechu length lepchu na ne ta mangshu tangka mangshu kanggerendo. Roa, ta chigrindo enjirindo sumbrindo shirindo ngarindo tigana ne mangshu kangerindo sete tanda chechuge lende chu tigana ne ta tangthu tigana ne mangtangte te chagres.
And this is a graph where the height of this is based on how many responses had that same answer. So let's say this was hours of sleep, that there were a certain number of, or this was hours of sleep, and there were a certain number of people who responded about this, and then there were lots of people who responded with this amount of hours of sleep.
Tanda dim bana roa. Tanda pajutela thrishkondo thridige thuse tige tanda da ko anyugi you say hours of sleep on the side and the frequency on the side? Hours of sleep.
We're missing a figure. So
Sure.
I'm going to walk us through this. You got it, Dawa? It's going to be good. Okay. So imagine that we take all of our participants and we ask them how many hours of sleep you got. And that we say, this is 5 hours of sleep, this is 2 hours of sleep, and this is 12 hours of sleep.
Da dirwa ta de kare senanga su thidi na ne ta digi thetik ga la ya cho ni cho manglo la khusong sa ti ba na ro nga chu chimati la cho nga khusong sta phajo ti ba na chu ni ji chu sa la ba na chu jong se ga o de re chu man chu cha na chu ma che.
And lots of people said that they got 5 hours of sleep. So let's say that this is like 50 people said that they got 5 hours of sleep.
Ta tanda nga su ge jont ka gala ka re se tambala mi ta tanda chu ani ge chu ka chu ra ma ra ti la ya mi ma lo ge chi lan je sha sa te re ta tanda picha sha ba na chu nga la ya ni ra song sa te mi nga chu tham ba na mi mang bu chi la ya chu nga ge ani ra ba ti lan ja yo res.
So if we take all of those numbers and we average together, we get that the mean is 5 or very close to 5 hours of sleep.
Ta tanda te nga su ge mi chama ge ani ka chu khusha se te ge ani nyom tok te cha ba na nga ta ya na nga ta thani u chi la le res.
We also get the median, sort of where 50% of the data falls on either side, is at 5 hours as well.
Ta tanda dinda do ka si ba na wa dig ka se ta parni ka tang tha chi go ro pa ro ka tang tha te ya cho nga do chi la ya ta ta de ge ta tanda de ka se ka se na ta tang thu ti na ne ge ja cha nga chi chi tanda ge parni ka tang tha te go yon sho ta ja cha nga chi ge sho sa la yo res.
Sometimes these values are not the same, and what we see here is that the median and mean are quite different.
Ta tham la ro wa ani phajoti ba na nga chu ko nyom tang tang da na ge panik tang tang ten sha shi ba re do wa ta tham la ya nga chu man do ten na yong re is wa this tambala ko ge ta mang tang tang ta ne panik tang 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 ten ne nyom tang chu man do cha ge res.
And this is because in this data, we might have an outlier or somebody who's sleeping a really, really, really long time.
Ta dina do yong ko ko jinse ka re system bala ya nga su ko tang thon de na la ya outlier se do an de ta nga jire ti short tang le je sha yo short tang system bala ya chi ko consuma to ba se wa ta ta de ka su ku yong ga jinse ka re se de ze la ya me chi pe de ko chi so jin bo shiu chi la ni khu ya ge ne ta de chang yo res.
So we're taking all these hours of sleep, and people say, I got 4, I got 5, I got 5.5, I got 5, I got 6. And then one person who's really, really sick that day says, I got 18 hours of sleep.
picha bana phajotela ya nga suga ni kasu kusta ni kula kecha trigorwa ta ji kuso cheka kuso nga cheka kuso tu cheka khonsu segerwa da tere chi da ta ya mi chi ke nga ni matela ya ne zupu du shi la jong ma son ye ba yin chi choje le nye ba yin sle tena do ne tan chong yores.
That caused our mean from going over here to way down here because we just added a really big number relative to all the other numbers.
Ta de la ya nga su ka chi la ba na de ge nyom tang te ta kimani ta bet chujok sala pal he de res ka chi la ba na de la ya nga su ko chotang se ko wa ta ko de la ya tangka ta ni khya ge ti su junong po ni khuju ge tangka chi lai ba res ti sta mala de na chag yores.
And so when you have data where you have these few data points that are much larger than others, oftentimes we'll start talking more about the median because it's not influenced by this as much.
Ta ke ti sro che chu la ya chi tang thu le ba je tang thu na ne ta tangka kha shi chi be ti chembu ta be ti chong chong chi yo pai ba na nga chu ge ya de ka se tan da ge par ne ge tang tha median size to wa ti yang se pe che tang de se jagres.
And this is just an example that I talked about when we were talking about data yesterday. This is a data set from a previous group.
Ta dan da de kesang a su ko tang thu ko la ke che chi she yo re ne din chen jen da chi ke de pi gi shimjik tan re bi tang thu tin de la yes.
If we look at the number of years these participants have been practicing meditation, we do see that there's a lot of different kinds of numbers, everywhere from I have no experience to I have 25 years of experience.
Ta dan da de na ne nga su ge ka thik na ne de se de la ta bai ba na de ka re se na gum jeb nyong bi ge lo so terwa ta lo terwa lo ka so chi lo gon je ba yin se ta de na ta bai ba na khashi shon ne chon ne jama nyong warwa nyang me chi che khashi ba na lu ni senga jab chu ge tin da no sta dis ta ba la trangka bet ma ndo ma budus.
So though we see a 25, we also see a 22 and a 17. Those aren't outliers. There are sort of a group of participants that have a lot of meditation experience. And similarly, we have multiple low numbers.
Ta dan da de na ne ro wa ta ni sanga thong go te na jin ni sa ni do wa na jin ki judin do wa te ju ka la na chotang res chotang system bala ya thala ni bi su ko ro da ro wa ko ge pa thala ni no go tang ka re te na jin ke ga su go yang ko nyam nyong chon me chu le ko ni sum ti ya te na ya do wa na ko chon me nyam nyong chon me chu te na ya yo res.
But in age, we definitely have an outlier, in that we see participants who range from 17 to 30 to 45, but then there's this 91.
Ta lo so la ta ba im ba na de na la ya ga so chotang sing du sta tang ka ta je do lo guch ko chi in sa sto ga ta pha je te la ta ba na lo chidni chojini che ta ya do ba na ga so la sun so de ma she nga du do wa en te ge je la lo guch ko chi chi wa shin dus.
So if we were looking at the mean age of our participants and we added it, it would be really influenced by this high number, but the median would not necessarily be.
Ta ta da de la ya nga so ge chotang ta da de chi do guch ko chi do guch ko chi te ko tang ka ha chang chen bu chi ro wa tin sta ba la ya ji shi ching khen zu ge dan da lu so ge chan yong go nyam chang te che ba na dan da tang ka ha chang chen bu yo sta ba la ya che pe shu zu gres yim ba na ya lo so te ta ka nang ge dan da par ni ge tang thang la sto ga par ge tang kha te che ba yim ba na te ya che pe shi de zu go ma res.
Now, in this case, that 91 was just an accident of how it was typed in, but it could be a real number. It can be part of your data. That's fine. You just need to be aware when you have some data that's very different than the others.
La de na ne ro ko guch ko shi te shir ge ba na ko su ge tang thu te ma ta bi ka no tri sho wa do ji re sha sim ba na ya chi tang ge ta ya di da do ge tang thu la pa ba na ya chi su ge ka su ge zab za chi tu na chi go ke cham res.
Okay, and then there's another value that we can think about, which is range. And this you also saw yesterday, but now we're going to explore why it's important.
Ta dan da ya shen da chi ga su ge dan da tang thu tang de bi ke che shen da ba la si ke chen bu chi re che chu ke chen thong yo res ta dan da range se ti chap se ti wa te ka su chi cha ma che ti res dan da de la ya ke son thong yo re dan da de shi ja gens.
The math of range is really simple. You just take your biggest value minus your smallest value.
That the Tandari chapset the Saba by answer still a copana Lilaures, Shishigan on the Chonshi tension and chorus.
So in that data set before, we could look at the maximum or biggest value of the ages of the female participants, and we'd subtract the minimum value, which is 14, to get the range.
That Tanda Koroga chapset Sukuro, Parogi, but the Tselaya, and a Manshugan on the Yonshi tenant chorus.
So that we see the range for the female ages is 77, while the males it's only 26.
That and the dig who chapselata by Banara, chapses and arranged standard, Castle Lugi Hiva Dora, Lugi Chapter Doa, the Pamela Sombana, Lugi Chapter Dunston Rishas, Pilosum by Banan Saturindus.
So it can be very sensitive to having an outlier or a point that's very different than the others.
That and the Dins Tamalaya, Tandaki Chapseta, Tanda Dicasena, Lugi Hevati. Ani Natsugatangi Chotan says to Chembu Chembuchiandua, or T in Bana, the sensitive system Balatilatani, Tandagi Kurangavachetila, Chapter Shuchembuchu Grace.
Now, range is just a tiny part of this concept that we'll talk about a lot next year. It's about the variation in your group.
That and that day on a range said, the chapses said, Ani Kua, the Netunke Chembuchis, Netake Chembuchi in Bakanshila, that day Yanko Tandagi, Trasiganani, any variations, Godako, Juri Granjan, Sugumra, Korla, Chapakari said, Tiginani, Yanko Netun Chinchinchis.
But we'll see sort of a visual representation of that variation in our data in just a moment.
That and then I got to tell ya and cook a cheaper condition to do variations at the Tadangatsu Tantuna, like Kandasungo de Telaya, the Chusi Gelata against.
Okay, I'm trying to say. Yeah, okay. So this is that age data, and we're going to make a graph like this for our data. And so I want to explain it because it's tied to a lot of the concepts I just talked about.
That and the decoration and Atsuka Luzo Tandre de Tanwa, Luzo Tandre Koinugi, any ditchins, Rotantuchi instant day, Tanda take Jela, Chigre, and Tanda Delaya, and Muto Tabdichigins.
Here, we're looking at the ages of all the males in that data set.
That under de la Tabana Sosagi, theoretical system, Trantutina Yopigi, and it's cheaper put some Magi, Lucet and Rebig Trantutis.
This line in the middle is that median or middle value that separates your ages into two halves.
That under de la Yopigi, Dandage, Turindina. Napu Chembuchtoa, Radica, Panic Tantantes, Panic Tantantica, Tantan, Susula Tantuccio Panatico, Checanicatos Nichigora, or Tangateres.
Half of the male ages in this data set fall between here and here.
That in Anerwa, Kuga Tanda Lucigi, the Migi, Katangatsuchi Panati, Takilusogi, Me Tanka Katsuchi Panatiki Cheka Lusearch Gorwa, or did and then you go part of the Lelhegores.
And then almost all of the ages of the males fall between here and here, which is about 20 to 38.
That and the day Banarwa, Tandage, Dushindina Chinugu puts Hamag Lucet and the teaching to and then you go parola like yours, that in Bananga Suchujini Shuchu. Now,
when JAS makes this graph, it estimates using math or which it considers outliers. And this point represents an outlier.
That on the JAS Kuge Tanda Dege, the copy capsa, and Karsa Korangia, Karsa Tankala Tade Tirwa, and it in a Chopanda, which is Gumdo, and Reshe, they taken an eye at Tantugan on a Kangichi, could short on Resha, and Deo Meju Tantan Sugumda, 지중 옆에 장탕치 로가던 데다 단다 내가라 차시도가 내가 그 초장치 청구요레스.
So for the females in this data set that I was just showing you, this is the median age, is that dark bar right there.
다 단다 범매절 참바인바나 단다 주시진이 범매절 참바인바나 단다 되는 거 브랜드가 장탕때 단다 되나나 특나 붙이 텐도 내 청구요레스.
And 50% of the ages fall between like 18 and 24 maybe.
다 단다 되나네 그걸로 주시지 캥그나네 자창아 주스 그로아 자창아 스쿨로서티 조제니 니스탄사스 쿠바라야 니긴도스.
And because this is all sort of smashed in like this, we would say there's actually not a lot of variation, right? The range seems pretty small, and it is small here as well.
답 단다디 스탐발라야 코가 장토테게 간자 지 냠튼 제르데도와 냠튼 제르데 스탐발라야 아니 코수 바로라야 해버가 차버시다메 바체 단계 렌지 사이즈도가 거기 디 잡세텔라야 하천 총총연 바로와 대나싱 단다 부기 장토델라타 바임나 잡세티 총총렌도스.
What's something very unusual about this graph is then there's this point up here, that's the 91-year-old. And so Jas was like, well, I got to get on the graph, so I got to make this axis really long so I can have the 91-year-old there.
다다다 야 데그 코 테르데 고피 캡스로 와테나나 루그스 코시 치와치 유스 거와 티 코코로 티 코스 담발라야 아니 코 간텔 코샤요레 티 나싱가 구스 코시 인상 내가 속에 정트티 양 페랑 포치 트구고요와 트데다 코 구스 코시 텔라 코샤요레스.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to our heart rate data sets, which I'm going to have you download again after we add some data in just a moment. And then you're going to look for the mean, median, and mode, which is going to be under descriptive statistics. We'll make a histogram, and then we're going to make a box plot, which is what we were just looking at. That's called a box plot.
다단다이 만나러와 nga 속에 계산가 속에서 샤주가 장토되게 나타래에 장토 가시지 가는지야 예스 가는지는 제라야 제 속에 겐지로 지스 스타티스 담발되게 제라야 네치도가 솔라야 고 루시시마스 텔라테네 데타 아니 테탄 드레비게 뇽장체 아니 파닉 장탕체 티그나네 만장라 소파도 세로치스.
Before we do that, who did the experiment this morning? Anybody?
Okay, a
couple people. All right, first, before you download that file again to put it into JASP, let's let them get their data in. So if you raised your hand, go find your participant ID and add your data.
장투 지거로데 단다 장투데 마 팔라 마치로 제스로아 고 이시지하게 제때 단다데라야 군주식 진이 되는 쇼파 드미 가시 주요성도와 고쪽에 장투데 나 지구 찬우게 제라스 아니 마 팔런치 아니 디터레레스 오야.
So the link to our spreadsheet again in our classwork is it's still under day 4.
데 단다 단도 임바나 is under day 1 4.
Day 4.
Day 4. 단다 되게 장투데 단도 니마 시바사야 되게 올라 예스. 다 사와 단다 카시치가 드빈 사야 드즈나 지로치 수수게 때 땅포텔라야 주슈바게 안타테세 아니 지로치다.
It should just take, a minute or two, and then I'll remind you how to download the data.
되게 제라야 밸런치야 예스.
Or last year before that mean median mode, we've already talked about histograms. I came up and I'm like, oh crap. It's fine. No. I mean, for this year, I just want them to when plot comes up to have some idea.
Should I enter mine?
What?
Should I enter mine?
No, because Jeremy might use you as a participant for something later. So we do not want to reveal your data.
We're going to see if we can predict you can. Okay.
Yeah.
Who do we email the print stuff on? I was thinking of
Dawn Dupe's your best person. Yeah. Or you can ask her, but she might say oh, here's another email of somebody in the office, but usually we just ask Dawn Dupe, and she's like, oh yeah, I'll get it.
or recognize the list of letters and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a bit of like our memory experience.
It can't be like, oh, I got the slide up in front of me. Yeah. I need to do one thing.
They're done.
They're done? There's one person that's not done. It's going in right now. Okay. Done. Almost. That looks good. Practice. Hours of exercise. Are we done?
쳤어요. 네. 제수 쳤어요. 차라. 참하게 차라. Yes.
Okay.
All done.
So, as a reminder to download a file, you go to File, Download, and then, download, and then CSV.
Tadadadima Pavlan file setting, Olaya, Nipalan set, download setting, anything on the Karidan Kudo, Kuga Kasa, Dege, Ichag, Riti, CSV says Gudua, or Tidam Chene, Palanchiguris. Come to Jan.
Okay, and then you go to the 3 blue lines at the top and say open from your computer, and you go to the folder that it's in, and you select it.
That under data Palanchi Sanu Jela, any Palanchi Sanu Jela, and the just Yanchi Tikashino Jilani cook Yanchi Tinalaya, Pajodelaya, and a 2 Mungu Sumdoa, 2 Mungu Sumchestua, or Tikona by Banani, open your wrist, open it. Kashi says you record a Kashi was so long on the jet, and I managed to go Pablanchisa. Palanchi is hot in on your race, and it in on it under the Lanchi Kashirochis. Oh,
Yeah. Good? Yeah. You did
This
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
This
Right. So
Oh, yeah.
reminder, the little line, which is actually a ruler, represents continuous variables.
Uh-huh.
These three circles are categorical variables.
Oh yeah, that nga so ke dela ta pai mai na ro de ta ya ta katik ga la ya ta ma do ani do ro katik ga la ta ma do ani do chi thishin yo sa sto thishin yo sa tige kari tong gore system bala thishin yo sa tige katik ola yo chi ga tangka te sama jun tu pe gi jutan chi ba chong gore du sa jun tu ba tem te tanda shenda ya ko go sum chi sto gogo simche chido gogo simche te chi kala na ko ge tina na ko pe ge tang tu te za ane din sen tang de ge tang tu imba tang gores
Something that's interesting is JASP is just guessing what kind of variable it is.
ta yan de la ya chi ge yan sam bu chi kare ore se tambala tanda nyen chi de ge de kasa jutang ga ri kare rendo se to khong ga chopo chi ge ores
And we have one variable that's called a scalar variable. It's not continuous. It can't be anything. It can really be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
ta yan kensa chi kare ore se tambala tanda de na nga su tangka kha chi ge te ko chome ge tangka sa gum do ta chome ge tangka sa chi gores te la ya jun tu pe ge tangka mares jun tu pe ge tangka mai ba che ka sla na kho la ya tangka do do che ni sum shi nga ma to pe jun tu chi yo te yo mares
Yesterday, JASP, when I uploaded it, recognized that understanding the video was scalar, but today it sees it as continuous.
ta kesa imba na tanda ge just na ne ani lognem ta ju te ge ta ka chu ku yaglo chi lan son sa ge te imba ne kesa imba na nga chu ge ta chome ge tang thang go ngo la ro tang ka do ngo imba la ya ngo yo pe gin ju tang ngo la kwa lan shas tira imba na ko ane ko jun tu pe gin ju tang go khon su tang shan dus
So I can change what type of variable it is by clicking on the little thing and picking scalar or ordinal.
o de la ya tanda ani tanda de na ne ko la ya ga la ya touch to garwa ta te thishin yo sa ta te ga de tanda ani senda imba na ko tanda ya ordinal la sto ga de ko sa to ko damnan kores
Okay, so let's see. We said you're going to do, where'd it go? This thing, yeah. That we're going to have you figure out mean, median, mode for, and in this case, you're going to do it for the exercise variable. You're all, oh, yeah, go ahead.
ta tanda de na ne ro chogang ge kha chi se ko do ro tanda kha se go de ka re se da bla tangpo te la ya chanyong ko tang thang te che nya te la ya tanda median se te chitrang region do tang ge parna tang thang la ba chitrang se te che re te na se ge mang tang se te ta kare la se ge che go re se na tanda nga su ge luse rang lo la si go se do a ke san twach tang ro luse chi to ka la si go se ti shi sha de tan de ta len ja go
You're going to make a histogram, which I'll explain in just a minute.
aha ta te ge luse chi to mang lo la si se te ge tang tu te shi sha de tan de histogram se do ka de la ya degree pang degree chi zo chi go re te zo go re ste kan da zo go yo me tan de tis gu dan de shi ja ge ins ta ya nyen go do da ka she kha ya kho da na she kha ma unit I'm just telling them to face up.
Oh,
They're just facing down and listen to someone else, I think. I'm just kidding. Yeah, zero chi katu.
you'll make a box plot, which is what we just saw with that median and then the interquartiles.
Tati na sing tanda box plot la do ata ko digital den bi tanda ti digital den bi system bala ya tangi gana chi tan so lo so tan be ro ko do do ko digital na la ya ni ko ga na la ka so re ti tanda chitan te ko yo pala so pa chi tangi do wa o ti na ja chi zu gu yores.
And then to answer the question of outliers, that would just be one of those points that's outside of the box because it's really high or really low compared to the rest of your data.
Na handa tanda de na la ya chhatang do es chhatang sa ta au khai ta chara chhakar ta tanga sa tang chhatang sa de ta ko chambu tanga sa gum do ta o tin de me do es ta chatang sa de sta ka so re system bala nga so la tanga mang pu chi go de na yamna gang gang chi la yamna wo la chi tin da do dum de ta go res.
All right, now you're going to do this for exercise, but I'm just going to quickly pick a different variable and show you how to do this with a different variable as a reminder.
Ta tanda che su de sama kangela chi so chi go yo re Lucid so katsola si se tisi sa chi gu yores kusa. Ta tandangi de la ya ane jutang jenda chi dam chi ane chesula kanda suzu gu yo me tens.
We need to pick a variable other than exercise.
Ta tanda lucid tang mai bage ne de jutang jenda chi dam gu gundus.
Suggest a variable. Pick
Kare
one.
dam ge besa. Ah. Huh?
Age. Okay, age it is. So I'm going to go to descriptive statistics.
Ta tampo te la ya descriptive dejo sa te ola do te ola ya dejo ge ani tesi se do te dam gres. Oh yeah.
I pick age and I move it to the variables that I'm interested in.
Aha ta tanda te ka sa yeship chinyu tu nyu ge jutan chi orwa o te songkore dam gres.
And it gives me the mean.
Ta te de la ya nyom tong te tang do.
But if you go down under, you press this little thing, watch. Here we go. Under statistics.
Ta tanda de ola ya yang ko damya chi do statistics tesi se chi gres te dam
We can
na.
pick median and mode.
Aha ta de na la ya ko tan de vi ge kasa chitang che mangtang che nyomtang che tu dam bai na.
Yep. Okay. So it already had the mean. It added the median, which is that value where 50% of the data is on one side and 50 are another. And it did give us a mode.
Ta tanda de la ta bai na ro de na ne ta min sa na nyomtang te ro tanda ge jenda chitang sa te paro ge ta jachanga pa nga jachanga chu pha jachanga chu sa ba na paro te ro de na je nga chu la mangtang te la le sons.
It gave us the mode, but all of this text essentially means using a mode for this kind of continuous data is sort of weird.
Ro ta tanda de ba na de ka se ba na nga chu mangtang sa te kari ba chi ten sha asra. Mangtang te ten yor da ina de go la ya anu kun de sha mambo chi tsha do te kala na tanda de la ya ani tanda de la ya nga chu ge jun thu pi gi jutan chi la shi sha de ta mangtang se sho sa ba na khensa chi res le olan de sha jap shas.
Right, and the next thing is a histogram,
Ta dir ka yo re se na.
which is
Okay.
under basic plots.
Aha ta de ola ya ku thiri sa ro sa vi gi thiri sa chi ti ola yo res. Ta ko do.
What do they call it? Why don't I see it? Somebody find it.
Do yes sir. Ha.
Oh, yeah. There it is. Okay, so they call it a distribution plot.
Aha. Oh.
Oh. Okay, so a distribution plot is sort of something that we were talking about before, where we have all of our ages here on the x-axis.
Ta tanda de la ya distribution la na chapsu su gro wa. Chapsu ta lutsu kanda cha ta tamsu yang na chapsu tamsu gi thir su gore ta tanda de tangi de shi jaba na shere lutsu kacho kacho imbate ane nga su ge de x axis ta the thethka gala tam yores.
And then on the y-axis, it'll usually say counts or number of people, because we're counting the number of people, in this case, that are between ages 25 and 30.
Ta tanda de imbanar wa. Ta nyem gore da ya chesu kachi ro like the listen please. Ra marwe. Ta tanda de la imbanar wa. Ane jontik gala asra jontik tanda y axis gala kari ore system bala locho tinda yamba mi maloch du sra chansamala mi gi khatan la shore tanda de la yamba na count lando tambor zat shayores ta tanda de mana ko ge ta locho te chik mai ba locho te yang ko din sala isha do pichasna tangpote nistanga na sunchu ku parta kacho chi yore sa te chongores.
And you can, each one of these is called a Ben. We've decided to lump together all the people between ages 25 and 30 to get a count of 6.
Da da de re la nistanga na sunchu sa la ya dinsen chonchon dinsen la gres.
This is a very helpful thing to do with all of your variables at the beginning of exploring a data set.
다 단다게 된다고 지도와 단다 될라야 단다 데데가 속에다 거기 잠수기 들으더와 되나시 단계 대전다 바나가 속에 디그리즈인데 시작도와 일단발라야 아니 트랑토 라야 예수 지비캅스 토미 차라야 아니 트랑토기 덴슨 셋업 레레레레레라 데타 데조데티 카나도 친도에 다야티 케참부치레스
And I'm going to give an example as to why.
다티 케참부이는 거 진생기 비선칭 데시자용스
So we are about to do a very large experiment over the course of the next year together as a team.
다 존저가 로 되게나라야 가서 참하게 냠도 럭카시고 우라야 아니 딱시 첨부지 냠도 드라인스
And let's say we work really hard to decide exactly how we're going to do it. And the people who are here at Drepung have decided, this is how we're doing it. And the people at the monasteries and nunneries in Dharamsala are going to do it the exact same way. And we go and collect the data.
다 단다로와 가서 때 가르치 그래서나 다다 대기 초라요 빈데 폰라쇼베 요비 쿠시나 바촌타 다 출레 넘버 수게다 데나로 지지기 인세 데 난싱게 아니 파담 살라숑라 요비 근도 시신 수게 출레 넘버 데 넘버 수게 디시 지기 인슬레 다 코게 다 지테테 지바 치체 간네 지알라 탑시 땅데다 내가 수 땅토데 드르치 구여레스
But we forgot to discuss ahead of time as a group of researchers what age of participants we're going to use.
아하 다 게티스 와 다가 속에 지게 딱시 지하게 참고 참아치 차레스 이마나야 가서 신주바 지금 우간에 당보텔라야 알레다 가서 수신이 로서 가서니 가서 받다 자게 임베사티 투두 지야 트바 제바이나스
So all of the Drepung team, they're like, oh, we'll just reach out to our friends, and we get a lot of participants from Drepung who are sort of in this age range.
단 되게 솔라요는 근데 폰라 다니 kusu가 다 가서 내라얀 수신이 상마 안에 가서 족보라에 족보라야 대화치대데 무슨 수신이 지고 와서 봐이나 네 kusu게 다 지금 수신이 그 로서데 다 파조사게 된 생각에 순송을 제가 봐시도가 되게 바로라야 네 만수시 되게 바로라 용되요레스
And maybe Sarah J, Sarah May, they all do the same thing, but then the groups at Gandhin and Dharamsala are like, oh, let's get a bunch of older participants. And so we end up also with a distribution over here of the older participants. So it sort of looks like this, and then like this.
다야 셴다 단다 가서 딱 간덴데 세레레 kusu 카치게 임바나 아니 단단 데퐁도 바나지 치포치차데 아니 지야 젠다 카치게다 지 담살라이 니 당 간들 kusu 연예게 알레다 가순 수시친들라야 지야 루티스 쳔보여 줄라야 케탄고스 제 바임바나 아니 로고 로설라 시샤바나 코 디기 쇼라야 용그레스
So on accident, we didn't sample equally across lots of ages. We sort of got these two groups.
다 단다딘 담발라야 네탄 데나로 칠라테네데 ngasoge 탁세 심지라 연주식 진이티 스고로 탁세 심지라 연주식 진이티 아니 지금 로고 찹스 담스 가자 간라 차뇽부지 마정바체 전전라야 망포치체 양 루티스 쳔보여 주건라 망포치라데요레스
And so we might eventually realize, oh, we might at some point need to explore whether this group of younger participants did something quite different than the group of older participants.
다티 용전 다 칼레칼레 알레 다 가수고 단다 데 루티스 전전 요비기 딘센데게 루티스 갬바 요추고 딘센데타 만도 치고 아요나스 티 판슨 치고 드르야나 안드키요나스기 삼두치니에 바레스
Right. So that's a histogram or a distribution plot. And now we're going to make a box plot.
다다다 데 바나 데데 다단다 디나도 그 드라치 거로다 루서던도 그 드라티스 카레레스나 데라야 가수 디그스그레 야마나 코게 트람스기 단다 디스트리뷰션 서도 간데 트람스기 디그스그레스 단다데 가수 젠다 그냥 같이 트긴 스텔라
So this is under customizable plots.
데라야 코 드르 가나야 드르 코 셰타 파치 주야게 양 체치된 두스텔라
And we'll pick box plot.
다데라야 box plot 라고도와 타코 다 드르기 드르스금다 드르스데 드야요레스
So now we have our one variable here, and then we have age here, and we can change the color. I think. Oh, maybe not. Aw. Maybe not. Okay. We should be able to change the color. Okay, so these are our ages. This is our median age. 50% of our data falls in here and here.
Tā tānda dī ngā sūka lūtsū tāng rābi kī tāng tū tī tāng rābi kī tīrī rōwa. Dī ngā nē jīmā kī tīrī chitāng tī rēs. Nē dzūshī chīñī kī nē jāchā ngā chī tāmbā, dēñī kī pārū lā yō rēs.
Yeah, we have a little more, outside of this sort of middle part, we have a little more sort of older participants than younger participants. That's why this is longer.
Tā tātā dī kī rōwa, dzūshī dī kī tāng tā wō lā dūrū bāi bā nā dī kī rāng cē lā chir pā chīng dō wā. Dī kār tāng kō rē sā nā lū tīs yuñ yuñ lī lū tīs chī wā sā kō rō tā. Kō kī chī kī ndī lā tī nā chī wā tīs mā yō pā tōng kō rēs.
And then JASP identified 2 outliers of people who are in their 50s. And one of those.
Tā tānda ñiñ chī dī kī yāng kō chā chāng. Ani chi ngunzi chi sha asra da lo nga chi gang la yo pa ge ani ya ngunzi chi chi gang la thin ji ga ta shan dos.
Okay, so now go ahead, you've pulled in the data, you're going to go to descriptive statistics and you're going to make a histogram and look at the mean, median, mode of exercise and make a box plot of exercise. And I'll walk around and help.
Ta ko sa chama. O ta rang ja de ro che sa. Asensei tanda chesu la tantu tima phalan che tantu tina ne kari tande war chi gore e sama kanjo manjo che ya ma da research to ka so che yin se ti la wa research to ka so che yin se ti na ne ti tan de bi na ne chutan che kimala pi tang ka che nyom tang che ta cha tang sam che kar kar du se sos wa tne ko ge research so ti tan de te ani tanda nga su de chi zo go do ka sa degree chi zo go do ko tamse kanda ren do te chi ta go do ani te ge je la ya ko ge tanda ya ko drishi na yo chu ge de chi zo go do ya thri chi zo go do te zo ne te ge je la ya tanda ge luse ge chi so te ge na la ya cha tang do mi de mano chi chi ta go do o te te ro chis ne paro la ya dos ko chi 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 gen se ro pa go na ro pa chi gen. Yes, he said you are.
Okay. So now what we've done is really just explored the data we have, but we haven't done anything that allows us to get to our original question.
Tara tanda patanga sugu chi tangthu gang la ya. Ani chi chegu mabu chi driver race ra. Imbai na yas ngasu thome gi draw chi gorwa. Draw tila len de big thala ya ngasu tando chi yo mares.
So we did this experiment to look at resting heart rate. And our question was, does a breathing meditation for 5 minutes influence or specifically lower heart rate?
Ta tanda ngasu gi tanda shibjiti gi draw de kare sena karma nga grang la ya. Karma nga grang la ya unjong ge tempi tangen zong gomba imbana as unjong ge tempi tangen zong gomba imbana ti gi ngasu gi nyang ge phadan la shichen tegro es shichen ti ya nyang ge phadan te chidala tangro es draw tres.
So to answer that question, I need to compare our heart rates after meditation to something else.
Ta tila ya len debe ge chetu na gom jamnu ge je la ya gom jamnu ge je ge nyang ge phadan te jenda chila ya durgu was.
So what comparison do I want to do? What do we want to compare these heart rates to see if they are lower than something else?
Ta din stambala ya khu drubai na kangitang drusares ta jenda. Before the meditation, the reading before the meditation.
Okay. We have 4 readings before the meditation. Should we average all 4 of those and compare it to that?
Ta gomaje ngong ke segores gomaje ngong imbai na ngasu de la gomaje ngong la ya ngasu tongthu mando ajira yo ro. Ajchara segurwe yang na ajcha ge chanyam segurwe karichi gures. Kare tan tor gures. After watching the video, the reading after the watching the video.
So why did you pick after watching the video rather than after jumping?
Chonja janu ge je ge ane yang phardang tangka te madam ba de te ane temu tanu ge jela ya ge tangka te la ta par wa te dam gunu ge junse kare imbes. Ne ganga de le cheper shakro chonja ja de ta. Ale ore. Laso. Ale okay. Normal heart rate.
The normal heart rate you think is the one that's sitting? Okay, that's true. What was our question was about meditation, right? Specifically. So if you really want to get at the effect of meditation, would it make sense to compare it to something else where you're sitting or something where you're jumping around?
That under ngasuge dikas toa tikare sestambalaya gom jabala tene de nyang parde chitala tangarwe stotres tin stambalas nyang tanda gom jamnu ge jige nyang pardang te ta toa te injang swa nyang tanda gom jamnu ge jige nyang pardang te ane tanda ngasu temu tanu ge jige te la dunna yagrwe yang na chonja janu jige nyang pardang ta dunna yagres. That they say both.
They say both.
Yes. Some say watching the video, some say in
Okay.
jumping.
So effectively, we have two conditions where most of your body is physically at rest: watching the video and meditation.
That under the letter by Banarwa. That under the letter by Bana, Nasudela, Zuputing a sugar nivel of copy, Netan Sena, Tanda, Tanzangi, Tanzanchi, Netan Nidu, Stra, Tanda de la Shishabaina, Chicare Sena, and a cheating as Gomjanu Jitiris, Gomjabatere, cheating as with the Mutatiris.
And so if you feel like actually taking the time to concentrate on your breath could bring your heart rate way, much lower than just watching the video, then that is a comparison that you want. That's probably the one that tells you most about the impact of meditation.
That under what so that you pull Hula de Asgro, Tanzang and Diganani, Katies, Wachezang, Lognia Tanugi, Lognia Tanugi Latin de Tening Pentachi, that's what they done, Tanda Gonja Bati Latin de Hani go Ning Perdonte Beti Chita Latant by Bana, and Tenig Parola Durbaina, and the Chorongo Tony Tunu Gitachi, chairperson of Shushin Teres.
And so this is when you were designing an experiment and somebody's like, okay, I'm going to compare meditation to jumping, that you bring your logic skills and you say, wait a second, is that really testing your question about meditation or just about sitting down?
Roa, that under Roa, this Tambala Tanda Kashikin de la Drusena, and a gom jamnu jigete, Choncha janu jila drusek dus. That's a rupatan rochis, Susolaya, and a toxetan rochis, topasorochis. That te carilla drugundus. Roa, take a capsa carilla drugundus. Tanda tin Chadrubana Choronge, Gonjabala Tenet, the Ningo Pajan Chital Tangres, Troatilla Lan Jagates, or take it to a tetanrochis, Susula.
That being said, comparing to jumping is very helpful, first for for just what we're doing today and sort of using the data because we expect jumping to bring it up. And so we can see, like, does jumping actually significantly bring your heart rate up?
Tanda de kaso tanda chesu yom person jabala tene de tangthun de talaya yang ko ise chege ku ka chichong yore tina sing ngasu ge tangpo kura samlga nangla kare yore na chonja jaba em bana yang ge phalna te ya phal kre se gorwa tate kanso chi phag do kanda chi rendo te ngasu ngonsu ku tangka gande thont ku yore.
Or if this was a study where we had some novice practitioners and you think that actually concentrating on their breath makes them really anxious and could actually make their heart start beating really fast, then you would want something like jumping to just compare to.
Tanda nekap tinda la ola ya ane chi shena ngantra chi siguro ta ngansap chi de tanyang ka phardang te yang kure jinjog la ru gi netang tinda jong yo paina ane chorong la tanda dinda do ke te jinjog ru yo paina netang dinda do dursa chi yang ko chongja jaba ta dursa gi yang ko durji chi yang gu yo res is tambalan di nekap dinda do la tanda di gi tang tu di pheng yo res.
Now, one thing that we need to do, let me show you this, is that we actually decided to get 2 measurements here, 2 here, and 2 here, just to make sure that things were working right.
다 지팅 가서 가르쳐래 시스템 발라야 제고 만도 리리 지누 제라야 아니 세대 타만이레라야 제기지요레스라 세 제기지 요바데 단당가서 세 제시되게 레카 딱딱지 그 요메 타이기 제드레스.
So if we want to compare these to these, we can actually average these two for each participant, and then average these two for each participant and compare them.
따라와 다 단당가서 gom jamnugi jegite tanga temutanugi jita gom jamnugi jita temutanugi jegite nisha durgu yobai bana ani kansa ga reren jushupa re gi tan nyiri lansha yorwa tanto nyiri lansha jute gi ani chanyom ti seji phansu dunnan ku yores
And that is something that you can do. That's making a new variable, the average jump, and you can do it in Google Sheets and you can do it in JASP.
다 단단히 가서면은 단단하게 잔념 세스도가 잔념 세야 돼야 가서 단단히 되게 니까블라야 아니 주장 코 사와치 차거로 와 주장 세게 주장게 잔념 세야 되와 사와치 차거레스 다 잔념 세야 돼 근데 제수가 단다 리뮤 되고 엑셀 나네존나 거래 리무데 단다 엑셀 리무나 존나 거래 단다 때나신게 자스트 냐신나네 양코 존나 거레스
And just for this afternoon, I'm going to show you how to do it in JASP.
다 때린 연공기 전에 되체때 단다 자스트 년신안에 단다 그 찬염 세지거로 와. 때 간다 책이 오면 돼 되인스.
So if you look over here, I have a variable that you don't have that's called jump average, and I have one called watch average.
다 단다 딜라타 바임다이나 디나라야 아니 그 주장 서원이 해셔요스 제수대가 해요마 수수고와 네가나 카리오레 시스템 발에 총차제는 그투 찬연다 총차제는 그냥 그 받은 그 찬연다 수조들에 때문에 지게 그냥 그 받은 그 찬염세 아니 거셔요스.
So to calculate the average or mean meditation score for each participant, I can add a new variable.
단다 데라야 단다 땅가서 곰 잡는 그 제라야 냥 그 받던 가서 임베데 찬연 차야라야 가서게 야 주장 사와치 가는 식으로 왔대네.
And I give it a name.
다 메인데 곰 잡는 지게 냥 그 받던 그 찬연스고 곰그 찬연스 뜻한다.
I could then pull out a calculator or my phone and figure out this number for each participant, or I can have JASP calculate it.
다고 단단디라네로 단단디 챤라야 아니 수수게 카프나네 코게 지자가게 투거지거로 지디 키온데다 리리 장가자나드 거레 티난 싱기탄데 JASP 나네 코게 시야게 So if we want to get the mean meditation heart rate score for each participant, we will need to add their two scores together and then divide by 2. And then I hit compute column. I can't see what it says. Yes. And so now you can see that there's a meditation score for each person. JASP is something that this person only took one meditation reading, and so JASP will not give you a number because it will not try to divide by 2. It assumes that that's not going to work. Tanda JASP nane bana mi chicken zusuba shiki tantu tamachiri chiri mashilamandwa. The lemons tambala cook chanyon sessola JASP nane cook chitang rutangane and chanyon sesagmandwa segmandwa. The chanyon says tambala tanda trankate nigo goshana for chanyon stirgena te nigo gogo or katsuim batiga record them chini gogo or the team bana tanda tantu to degamarwa is tambala chanyon semdus.
Okay, so yesterday afternoon, here we go, hypotheses. Yesterday afternoon, we talked about two types of experiments, and we will make this graph slightly differently depending on what type of experiment we have. We have experiments where we're comparing between groups of participants and then within groups of participants.
다다 계산가서 연권 잡라야로와 아니 탁세기 전공만 완전 되시죠요레스로 딜라타 데탄 단다 땡아수게 단다 탁세틀라 가리페시던 것도 메타게인 스타치카레스 담발라야 로코니게 바로라야 드래기 탁세치거레스 때때가 로코치킨 난 쿠니 펜슨들기 아니 탁세치거레스
Raise your hand if you think this is within group of participant experiment.
다단다 데르와 데라야 코 루코가 바로 들으세다 단다이 데나네 네 루코가 낭 쿨라 펜슨들어서도 낭들고 딱세기 천고치그레 삼나 다당가 수고 연거 발당때 저 주스고다 데레 셈바임바나 락바야 자로치스 딱세기 된 생각에 지긴 사레스 천고 딱세 천고 되세
Okay, somebody who raised their hand needs to explain to other people why this is within a group of participants. I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
아하 가만히 예스로와 락바장이 지금 못저지는 데시자로치스 가레 지네르코 야나주시비게 낭쿠드르비게 딱세기 천고 지금 비게 진선 데시자로치스
And if nobody at your table raised their hand, then grad science teachers walk them through why this is true.
아하 다케티 수수고 독생나나 락바장이 지금에 바임바이나 체리 겔라주고 못저지로치스 디 덴바임비게 진세 단단가 수고 독세 드레치거와 데데 다 콘주시비게 펜션 낭 펜션 들비스고와 낭쿠 들비게 딱시 천고 지금 비가 준세된 데시자로치에사 가만히 2 minutes 1 minute 2 minutes
4.
0.5 minutes 4 minutes 가만히 예사 데시자로치에사 파슬라 다 데시자 겔라게 데시자
Yeah? Okay. I know that you could debate anything forever, but we want to make a graph.
야, 제수 가리 콜라 서버서구나 베트코라다 베트코라. sama
Okay.
siapa kena seperti itu kau betinggi haku yes, ena tak tandangan segendela ya, terus kau hati kalau ya, betul sama tangis.
So I'm going to give you my explanation of why it is within a group of participants experiment.
Tak tanda dela ya, dia tengah suka, rukuk ke nang terbigi canggu cigi imbati junsenti, ena ngarang oni kare cini di imbigi canggu ke junsenti desjais.
We have one group of participants, and within that group, everybody did the same things.
Tak tanda dela ya ngasur rukuk cembu cigres, rukuk cembu cigi nemese ngasur sama jesu cini sama ke cipta cikcang cigdrio res.
If we had said, you get to watch a video, you have to meditate, that would be between groups.
Tak keti isroa, keti ngasuke taksa cenggo, cesugula ya temu tarocis, ane rukondigi temu tarocis, ane cesuge gom jarocis, seyo paimbana ruko pension tergurwa, stin stambalaya, ane ruko ke parula durbi, segurada perdurgi, ne taksa cenggo de chagres.
And depending on sort of how timing works over the next couple of days, we will look at some data that looks like this. But right now, we want to make a graph of our data.
Terwa, keti, ta ngasula ya tutsu cing dang mai mai na ngasuga dinsa mando ani ke parola ya, ani drag tang drevi ke taksa cegu ke, ani tangtu tang, ani ciga te tang drevi ke thirka cila tage institution dang chong mai na, mata tanda ngasuga tanda taksa dripju dirwa de ko dinsa na rukha nang pension derbi segura nang lo ne pension derbi ke taksa chengu de tang drevi ke tangtu tage. Oh yeah.
And by next year, if we had these data, we would both make a graph and we would probably start talking about how you use statistics or math to say, we see a difference, is that difference meaningful in a mathematical context?
Ta tandi chara ya ngasu ko tangthun de ta che de tang ko thir ko chi chi yo re swa ta lo jema imba na ngasu kare ta ge insa na ngasu tangthu yo re tangthu la te de ne thir chi yo re thir la te ne de ta pension dur ba na ngasu ko cherper chi la thong yo re ta cherper thong yo pati ansig lam ni rwa ans ta na thasig lam ni cherper ti la ya chi ke ne chi due men dues o te la ta tang te ngasu ko lo jema de ja gins.
But right now, to make this graph, I'm going to go to a paired sample t-test. And paired means I have a pair of values within each participant.
Tata deka sembana nga suge sondar ki t-test like doa sondar ki t-test stambala pansun la ya ani drua ki t-test GH yores deka stambala ya ta kansa re imbana ko ge de la ya tangtu mando ni yoro ngon tan jigiti yoro ti pension durgu yo san tanda sondar ki test peche tan chi tagins
And that pair is their average watch heart rate and their average meditation heart rate for each of us.
That under digging on it was on the trees or taking on a chicares stambala temutano jig and younger pardon chanyum teacher, genete gom jamno jig and younger pardon chanyum teres.
And notice here, now it's saying variable pairs. It wants you to say, you have to give me two variables to compare the values of.
That under dig go sonderge trees or tag Kuga top the Casagre, Totran the Kisho says Tambala Social Salaya, Nico. Karikare Durgu Omega Kuge Karsa Jutan Shakisho like the Wati Kisho like this.
Okay. Oh. So here is what is just called a bar plot, where we have this is the watch score. Average. It's really that high? For all of our participants, and that's the mean meditation score for all of our participants.
Tanda de manner Tanda de Gasudus Costabalaya Pazote, Tanda Temutanu Jigi Chanyong Butiche, Roa, de Cares Tambalaya, and the Gomjam Jigi Chanyon Teres.
But much more meaningful is to see each of their participants and their pairs.
That daily ko Yagachikari Yore Sestambalaya, any Karsa. And soon the super Susugi, any Chanyum Gich Yorwa, the super Susugi Chanyum Tate and Drevigi, and it created up by Mana Young Kotila Tonya than by Congress.
I know that I have a low heart rate, and so one of these two sets is me.
Ngaran somebody by Naran get Yesu never copy getting a pardon to table US this Tambalaya or no conroshing at the big Tanturindus.
And I think I'm this point, and if I followed along to this point, because my heart rate did go down just a little bit after the breathing meditation.
Tanda data by Bana. This much Sadwar Wakuga, younger pardon teaching on to the inside is Gomjanu Gila, younger pardon testing much assons.
This person had a pretty high average heart rate after watching the video, and then their, probably here, their meditation heart rate did go down quite a bit.
Tanda Gala Yuchigata by Banarwa, Tanda Gomaji Gongisura, Temutanu Jig, and Pardon Shirgi, Banata Tumbudus, no Gom Janu Jilla Shu Marata Chandos, Chanyumte.
But if we just look at the median heart rate after watching the videos and the median heart rate after meditating, they're very similar.
Tata de Kugan Chalata by Banner, or Temutanu Jig and Pardon Gichitanta, a Gom Jamnu Jig and Pardon Gichitan Chalata by Pen Doreshas.
So, what we would do now as scientists, and you're welcome to do that, is think of why. Maybe meditation does not drop a heart rate ever. Maybe breathing meditation doesn't. Maybe it's how long you meditate. Maybe the watches didn't work very well. You start thinking through all of these possibilities because that becomes a big part of the story that you tell.
That the courage in the Chapashita Mango by Junsa Karinas. Chichi by Mbana, Gom Jabaina, young Pardonte Marapap Kmebainas. Chichi by Mbana, young as Unjung Tambitang in the Tipat Kmebainas. That Shenda not Supagatua, Mampuching Gorwa. Yamana young Asuka and the Tejag Sotigi Likachi Tatachi Mebainas. They took it to one, they don't the courage Tambalayan, Chisu Sandra Dubiat on the Layatashi Mampuchi Jidoa, Duzu to check kitchen Buchichagures.
Okay, so it's now dinner time already, but we think we'll probably have some time to do this a little bit, but I do remind you that we have the entire research manual available in the classroom. It's currently just in English, but there's a data set. You can go through each chapter and you can sort of work through these data and start exploring different patterns, different types of analyses, and what we would do, for example, when you have between group data.
nisu data tanda ngasu ge tanda Google zentra nang la ya ani shimji ki laqtep se tep ti gi ani sintri chi yus masin chi yus ta te nang la ya tanda du kanda se ishi chi gu me kari kari chongu yo ma ti kari kari chongu yo me ti ku kurum chin to ko sha yus ne chesu ge ta ta ya che te ins tanda chala inchin mashiyo maris nimba ne chesu ta che te ins ti nang shingi tanda de da ngasun de shi jaba de da ko ge nang dur gi taksha chango chi ro wa ti ko pardu parola dura ko pansu parola dura ti tan de be ge pisun tin da yes
And while we don't have time right now, one thing that you could do for homework is you could do this, but do it with the jump average and the meditation average.
tarwa ta tanda nga chu chul ha men du srwa ne chechu la ya nangli gi chutus karit na ro che sena ane na son de tanda gi de ko ro che sro phe thi test sach do ta durgu yo ro karit ro che sena chongcha jamlu gi ji ge nyang ga phardang ga chanyon te ta gom jamlu gi ji ge nyang ga phardang chanyon te che dur de tan de dus ko ro ches.
So to do that, you'll need to make the new variables that are the averages, and then you do the paired t-test and try to get a rain cloud plot.
tarwa tanda de zuak chete tangpo te la ya chechu ge njutang sawa chezu gu do njutang sawa chezu de tang ko chanyum ti cha gu do chanyum ti chanu gu jela ne tanda ge de ge thiri de go ro ches.
Good, thank you.
Thuji ches